Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a real joy to be talking about such an important topic. I've been a long-term admirer of the LISA network, and the importance of statistical advisory has not, and in my opinion, is not going away. And that's really what I would like to talk about today. The world is changing, and it has changed. And despite that, the need for statistical advisory is as present as ever. In fact, it's possibly more important than ever. Okay, so I've got 6 main points I'm going to talk through. And each of those, of course, have a little bit of content to them.
And you're not currently sharing your slides if you want to.
Oh, the slides are not showing. Sorry, I thought they were
No,
showing.
I took them down during the
Oh, you took them
introduction.
down. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Are they showing again now?
Yes, the continued importance of statistical advisory in the age of AI. Perfect.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thanks, and thanks for pointing that out. Okay, so yes, at the heart of this is the problem that the world has changed, and it's changed in very interesting ways. And this has become urgent. No one can ignore what's happened with generative AI in the recent years. It is something which is changing our world faster than many people are comfortable with. But actually, this change has been a long time coming. And the age of AI, really, you can date it back 30 years if you look behind the scenes. And you can date it back 80 years if you think of the ideas and where they've been coming on and how people have been working on this. But over the last 30 years, really, we've entered into the age of AI because we've left a world where data was a scarce resource, and we've entered into a world where data is abundant. Of course, the recent advance, generative AI, which sort of hit people's consciousness just a few years ago through the advantages, particularly of ChatGPT, that's what people are all thinking about. That's why people are recognizing things have changed, things are changing. But a lot of the changes for us as statisticians predate that. The shift from statistics to data science has been happening over the last 10, 15 years, where gradually data science has been capturing people's imagination. And that, again, has come out of the machine learning methods and the abundance of data which is needed to feed them. And as we look forward, AI agents are, I believe, the manifestation of generative AI, which is going to stick. You know, having AI agents supporting you in things that you are doing and them working well, this is something which we will have going into the future, and people will be able to use AI agents to help them in their statistical analysis. You've got a workshop on this coming next Thursday, I believe, and it's something which is not going away. On the contrary, it's going to get better and better. If I have a hypothesis on this over the next 5, 10 years, actually the AI agents will move us back to user interfaces and away from code, because I believe that the AI agents will be able to work and manage the code so it's nice, it's reusable, it's well documented, it's achieving all the things that the user interfaces were failing at, which led us to abandon them and go back to code. And there's history here. You know, we were, as statisticians, we were all working in code until we had wonderful UI interfaces which came up and which moved us back, which moved us to have more easily accessible interfaces with data analytics. And then, because of the need of reusability, because of the challenges of reproducible research, we got pushed back to code because there were certain things that the UI interfaces, the sort of front ends, were not well adapted to. And we all rushed back to code and started coding again in Python, in R. And that was how we needed to work. And we were able to train a lot of people to do so. But it's not, in my opinion, because that was more efficient. It was because we couldn't get well-structured scripts which were produced from user interfaces. I think that will change in the future. I think the AI agents will help us tidy up our scripts, even if we're using front ends to produce them. So AI agents are going to be transformative in terms of how we do statistics, how we interact with code, how we do our analysis. This is really the age we're entering into, and it's really in its infancy at the moment. But that's where we're living. We're living in an age where the artificial intelligence tools are emerging. They're still in their infancy, but they're changing what we do. But let's get back to statistical advisory, because statistics was born in data scarcity. That's where statistics lives. Most statistical methods are about making good use of small amounts of data. Fundamentally, all the hypothesis testing machinery, which is so powerful and so useful, is broadly answering the question, do you have enough data to be sure that the effects you are observing are not due to chance? It's all coming out of data scarcity. When you've got lots of data, that's no longer the right question to ask. There's many other questions around bias and around all sorts of other things which become much more important. But statistics is as we know it and as we use it, is born in data scarcity. And that is not something which is actually going away. There will remain many contexts within which we're still going to have a need for relatively small amounts of data to help us to determine with precision scientific results. I'm using this specific language because it is science and scientific knowledge which is going to continue to need statistical methods, as opposed to the methods which are emerging from data abundance. I'm not saying that science shouldn't embrace data abundance. It should, it can use it well, but we cannot lose the fact that certain scientific studies, certain questions are going to need statistics and statistical methods to be able to turn data into information, into knowledge in ways which are rigorous and where we are confident in the results. And a lot of that confidence and a lot of the statistical approach that we need to build on comes back to our design principles. How do we design our studies so that we actually are confident in the results, so that we reduce bias, so that we understand the application of the results we are working with? This is not going away, and as we have more and more universities around the world, all building scientists, training them in scientific methods and carrying out scientific studies, those methods and those design principles are going to remain, by and large, statistical. And there is going to be a continued need for human advisors. It is not going to be enough to have your AI agent talking you through, because although the AI agent will be able to advise and give a lot of different, and make it easier to do certain things, which at the moment we as statistical advisors help with, producing graphs, producing tables, helping with simple things, actually drawing insights out of data, understanding the biases that could be there, thinking deeply about what we're doing, that skill set is not going away. This is going to be something where the role for good statistical advisors and statistical advisory in general is never going to be replaced purely by AI. AI can, at best, it can enhance the statistical advisory by removing certain needs. But new designs, new questions, by definition, are not available from the historical approaches. The best we can hope for is that AI agents will in the future be able to deal with standard methods, historical methods. The novel new statistical approaches that may be emerging, the need for innovation in how research is done, by definition, that doesn't exist in the data which is used to train the AI models. Yes, they can draw links, maybe they can draw insights from different disciplines that would not have been brought to bear. So I'm not saying that AI agents couldn't help in the innovation of new methods, but human advisors and good statistical advisors will continue to have an important place. And let's be clear, part of what we need the data scarcity for, these smaller studies, the studies which are potentially experimental in nature, is to really be confident on causation. It doesn't matter how big your data set is, unless there is a well-designed experimental component, the best it can do is hypothesize causation. You will need experiments, and maybe there will be large-scale experiments. That's something I hope will emerge much more in the future. The idea of actually embedding into digital technologies and formalizing experiments at large scales through having them as embedded in experiments within digital interventions. Oh, that's going to be a source of incredible data and incredible knowledge which could emerge, where experimental design could merge with big data in ways that we're struggling to imagine at the moment. We already have a few instances where I've seen this happen formally, but relatively few, and actually surprisingly few, given that this could have been done for many years already in formalized ways, but there's relatively little of it. So large scale, I'd say large scale experimentation using big data platforms coming out of digitalized technology, which are scientific in nature, because of course a lot of this is marketing in nature. They've been doing this in big tech for marketing for years, but actually to draw out scientific learning rigorously, there's instances, there are cases, not as many as I'd like to see. That's what's going to be needed to be able to really investigate causation at scale and to really be able to have the next jumps in our scientific knowledge. Scientific principles are not affected by our shift to a big data era and data abundance. And I want to come back to this key point. It doesn't matter how big your data is. Hypothesizing causation is not the same as actually studying it. And that is a piece where we as scientists and with a statistical background, our design of experiments becomes a real power in our arsenal, because it's going to be so important for the scientists of the future. This is something where being able to actually follow through and confirm hypotheses, by designing interesting experiments at scale, I hope, that is something which is really statistical in nature and where we need to think statistically. But if we think of actually analyzing statistics, so using statistical analysis, this is changing. And I really am delighted by your workshop next Thursday, which is saying, we can use ChatGPT to help us with our statistical analysis. My claim is that this is just a glimpse of what will be possible in the future when we get better trained AI agents embedded in our statistical software, and actually we start getting the real benefits of the AI agents to statistical analysis, rather than just at the moment to code generation, which is where I guess we're at the moment. If you're wanting to write some R code or some Python code, yes, I strongly advise you to use chatbot to help you to do this. Iterate with this. The better you are as an R coder or Python programmer, the better you'll be at actually correcting it and actually making it work well. But it's a really good process to iterate on this. You can actually get optimization. You can get all sorts of advantages based on historical code. Of course, what it means for the latest packages and the latest code which emerges, well, how we train AI agents to keep up to date is a really interesting challenge that we're going to have in the future, because the analytic tools are advancing all the time, and we need to be training our agents on the latest approaches to make sure they're up to date, just like we as humans need to stay up to date with, you know, the latest tidyverse changes in their language or whatever it may be, your packages of choice. But the big thing that this does for me is it does put modeling into a different place. Traditionally, statistics has been consumed by its models. Too much importance has been placed on modeling. This is actually, I believe, been very detrimental to statistics as a discipline. It has meant that many areas of working with data that should have been central to statistics were let go, and sort of people talked of them as a different discipline. Monitoring and evaluation. How is that not part of statistics? Well, it's not part of statistics because the modeling needs of it weren't central, and therefore statisticians said, oh, that's not real statistics. No, you're just, that's not important to us. And so it was allowed to become a discipline in its own right. This is a long time ago, but this was the start of the end for the statistical dominance over data, just as data was emerging into the public consciousness as the really important, valuable resource that it has become. And yet, as statisticians, we allowed monitoring and evaluation, data mining, all these other data tools which have emerged over time to be taken as something which is not central to statistics when they should have been, because too much importance was placed on modeling. I believe part of what we are getting with the advances that are coming now or in the near future with the likes of ChatGPT and the generative AI platforms, the large language models, is we are now in a position where we can think about teaching and analyzing data differently. I feel this really simple framework is explore, describe, present is what we need going into the future. This is not revolutionary stuff. This is stuff which has been around for a long time. But I believe it does help us to put into place the different things that we do with our data. When you first get data, you need to explore it. You need to tidy it. You need to actually check that it's in the right shape. And I want to be clear here, if you go to the tidyverse and they talk about this, they distinguish between tidying and transforming. I'm not talking about transforming here. Transforming is getting your data ready for a particular analysis. Tidying is putting your data into the right shape to start with. This is making sure you're doing your quality control. This is looking at your data, understanding what data is there, what data is not there, what missing values do you have, what maybe missing variables you might have. Maybe you even have levels of data, whole areas of data where you haven't collected the information you needed. Exploring your data, knowing what is there, what isn't there, and looking for the obvious patterns that are coming out of it is something that can be done as you get your data coming in. And once you've got your data, you don't even need your scientific objectives to do it. It's just a function of the data itself. But of course, any analysis is defined by the objectives. What are the questions you are asking of your data? You need to understand what are you trying to actually do in a study. And I would argue this is what defines the describe phase. So your explore phase can happen on data. Your describe phase, you need objectives as well. What are the questions you are asking of your data? And now once you have the questions, once you know what the data is asking of you, so what you are asking of the data, you can now investigate it. You can try and, first of all, see, well, is there a simple answer to my objective in the data? Well, let me go deeper. Are there other variables in my data which can help me to understand the results that I'm getting? Now, you can include those through visualizations, or you can do this through modeling. Modeling has an incredibly important role. You've got to know, are the results you are observing, are they statistically significant? Do they actually occur not by chance? Is this something where you have confidence that you're able to go out and tell the world these results are unlikely to be due to chance? Modeling is extremely important at this point to be able to really make sure that the results that you are putting forward and that you're putting out into the world are results that are scientifically valid. This describe is really the critical, it's the heart of the work that we do as statistical advisors, is we help make sure that the scientists have the right results and they're able to prove them based on the data that they have. And they know about the variability of the data, and they know what they know and what they don't know. But it doesn't matter what results you have if you can't communicate them. And this is something which I believe in the past, as statistical advisors, we've maybe not played the role here that we should. I've been challenged very recently, and in the next month, we're going to Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali to give workshops on presenting data. This is the sort of thing journalists do better than us as statisticians, I'm a bit ashamed to say. Actually presenting data, you don't just have the data and an objective, but you also have an audience. Who are you presenting your data to? Because depending on who you're presenting it to, that will change how you should present it, how scientific it should appear, how much complexity there should be in it, how much abstraction. My favorite example is we've been working with groups who have been doing data visualizations for farmers, sometimes illiterate farmers. When we first started doing this, people would say to us, oh, you can't make the graphs complicated. No, that's wrong. The correct statement was you shouldn't make the graphs abstract. An average is an abstract concept. Actually, farmers don't understand it well. However, they do understand a really complex graph where they can self-identify in it, and they can relate it to something concrete they know. So actually, they do deal with complexity very well, better than many scientists sometimes, but they don't deal with abstraction well. So understanding for a particular audience what is the right way to present, that's a whole nother skill in itself. And we, as statistical advisors, need to work on our skills in presentation. That was really the key part of my talk, I suppose. And so I'm just going to finish. I've got 5 minutes left. I'm going to finish with generative AI tools, and then the fact that the challenges we face as a society are actually an opportunity. You have a workshop on this. I'm not going to go into details and give any nuggets of wisdom here, but we need to change the way we teach. There's no doubt about that. This is not happening just in statistics, this is happening in pretty much every discipline across the world. The way we teach is affected by large language models and what they can do and how students are going to interact with them. If we think about how we teach constructively, we should be able to get students coming out with better knowledge, with better understanding, and with deeper conceptual thinking. If we just keep teaching the way we're going, it's going to be worse in all of those dimensions, because people will take shortcuts with generative AI, and it will reduce the challenge, it will reduce the cognitive load in certain ways without stretching them with others. And so we will give worse education than we are currently giving. And this is the battle we're actually facing as educators right now. How do we change how we teach so our students can come out better, not worse, than they would have done without these tools? This is a really interesting challenge, and it's something we should face up to. It will change our teaching, but it's not just our teaching; it changes how we do our work. We don't need to now have coding as a requirement for statistical analysis.
Yes,
Don't get me wrong.
Statistical teaching.
Sorry, was that a question? Okay. So we don't need to have coding as a barrier to statistical analysis.
So many things.
Is there a question? No? Okay. If coding is no longer a barrier, it can become a much more accessible discipline. We can actually welcome many more people into the fold of being able to do statistical analysis. Don't get me wrong, I love coding as a teaching tool. I still believe we should teach kids to code. But I don't believe we should have coding as a prerequisite to statistical analysis. And this is something where people who don't have coding skills should be able to use generative AI or other user interfaces to be able to do good statistical analysis. And that's something which I'm really excited about, because I believe coding has become, again, a barrier where it doesn't need to be. And more generally, this should enable us to focus on what is important. What is important is statistical understanding, removal of bias. There's so many different aspects of this where they get lost once people get focused on the code. I've seen many people who are excellent coders forget to look at their data and do the wrong analysis because they didn't look at the data enough. They didn't understand the missing values. They didn't understand what was not there as well as what was there. We can actually focus much more on the important things in our data because the AI and other tools can help us to do the analyses we need. Okay, I'm almost out of time, so I'm just going to go to my final point, which is where what I've found time and time again. I've had the privilege of working for a long time in Africa. Basically, I know in your context, the data abundance era has led to challenges for statistics advisories all over the place. But data abundance is a good thing. We need to remember that. And therefore, those challenges, we need to embrace them. We need to turn them into an opportunity. We need to evolve to take advantage. And we need to help statistical advisory as a process flourish because it's needed. It remains as needed as ever. And it's not going away. And furthermore, the thing that is going away is the hype around AI at the moment is a bubble which is going to burst. But that doesn't stop the fact that there has been a huge advance. The AI agents are going to be extremely useful, not to the extent that people are now hyping about. That's why everyone's talking about the AI bubble and when it's going to burst. It will probably burst. But once it bursts, that will be a challenge in other ways, but it'll also be an opportunity. because it'll be an opportunity for us to actually pick up the pieces and say, okay, what you really needed was this. Oh, that's my time up. And that was really what I wanted to finish on. Statistical advisory is here to stay, even once the hype has gone. Thank you, everyone.